Unfortunately, due to a malfunction in our recording software, the second half of Safe as Houses did not get recorded for this podcast. As such, before we proceed with this episode, I would like to provide a brief summary of the events of the unrecorded session. Safe as Houses, Part 2. In the guise of Broderick Tew, the ghoul biker, Hope leads the coterie to number 223 Beach Street, Port Melbourne, the assumed hiding place of Spider, the Anarch Nosferatu, and his quarry, Martin Langley, the would-be child to Prince Squizzy. Unlike in the real world, where Port Melbourne's waterfront, looking out onto the scenic Hobson Bay, is a tourist hotspot, Prince's Pier, one of the first and oldest jetties in the city, a heritage-listed site. In the world of darkness, Prince's Pier is little more than a wreck half sunk into the inky blackness that is the bay at night. Buildings that were once luxurious and expensive beachfront properties are now little more than emaciated husks worn down with time and despair, badly maintained and abandoned for years, home to Port Melbourne's homeless and squatters. The coterie decides their best play would be to attempt to lure Spider out. Hope, wearing Broderick Tew's face, has a direct line to Spider, and so, taking shelter in a nearby building, Hope sends a text message to Spider stating that the bikers in the back lot are overrun and to send backup. The coterie waits until they see the heavy oaken doors of number 223 open in the night, admitting nobody, before deciding that Spider is out of the way and leaping from a half-collapsed fire escape onto the roof of their quarry's hideout. Unfortunately, not all is as it seems. Thanks to an earlier expedition by Hope, scouting the premises of 223 and the surrounding apartment blocks, Spider knows of the coterie's presence, or at least he knows that Broderick Tew is not where he claims to be. And so he waits within his hideout for them to arrive. Quickly searching the decrepit apartment block that Spider calls home, the coterie locate, sequestered inside a burnt-out apartment at the very back of the third floor, a cell containing Martin Langley. A former bathroom, stripped of all its fittings and refurbished into a holding cell, complete with inches-thick steel, preventing its sole inhabitant from escaping. When Hope steps forwards and, in the voice of Broderick Tew, assures Langley he means no harm and convinces him to follow the coterie, Spider springs his trap. He demands angrily to know why Hope, in the guise of Tew, wishes to liberate their prisoner. Thinking fast, Hope claims to be dominated, stating that The La Sombra bitch and her friends have him eating out of their hands. They'd have you bring this man back to Prince Squizzy, snarls Spider. I can't let that happen. Sorry, mate. And he leaps towards Hope, intending to knock him out. It's at this point that Derek and Sylvia, who've remained hidden, step out of the shadows, bringing the fight to Spider. Sylvia utilizes her arms of Ahriman, twisting the darkness into a shadowy appendage that strikes Spider, pinning him to the ground, while Derek begins to recite the words to a blood sorcery spell, extinguishing Spider's vitae and pushing him over the threshold into hunger frenzy. His faculties dulled by his extreme hunger, Spider begins to fight like a wild animal, making him easy pickings for the coterie. They manage to pin him down, and, defenseless, Derek casts his spell again, extinguishing the final drop of vitae within Spider's body, rendering him completely torpid. His skin putrefies, grows stony grey, and he moves no longer. Martin Langley is freed from his cell, and at first expresses confusion as to why the coterie has rescued him. Aren't you all blank bodies? He says. Blank bodies. The phrase immediately piques the coterie's interest, and inside Langley's cell, they find an item that confirms their worst fears. A thick folder full of loose-leaf paper, its pages filled with code phrases such as Ballas, Helsings, blank bodies, strange acronyms such as SO13 and URG, meaningless strings of numbers. On the front cover is an image of a skull with a dagger lined up straight through the middle, piercing the top of the head and emerging from the jaw underneath it. Emblazoned in silver lettering are the words Task Force Harker. Squizzy said he'd make me one of you, stammers Martin Langley. Task Force Harker's here in the city, and if I didn't turn over all my intelligence, you wouldn't even know. He claims to be defecting to Squizzy's side, bringing with him a gift, all the intel he has compiled as an inside man on the Second Inquisition in Melbourne. The coterie don't know quite what to make of this, but they decide they'd rather take their chances than anger the prince. And so they lead Mr. Langley out of the decrepit apartment building, Derek and Hope dragging the torpid form of Spider between them, encased safely within a discarded body bag. Just as they reach the car sent by Prince Squizzy, a whoosh of air buffets them as a blur leaps out of the shadows, a flying fist slamming into the side of the car, shattering the window and leaving a dent in the bodywork. Larson Moore, Squizzy's child, Squizzy's scourge, has been following the coterie. I'm not about to let you turn that Inquisition prick into the prince, says Moore. Far be it for me to question the wisdom of my great sire, but Bruhar aren't known for thinking things through, and this guy, if he's led into our inner circle, will bring doom to us all. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't turn him and you into paste right now. The coterie explain their case. They're on the job. They can't anger the prince. And furthermore, if the prince wishes to embrace Martin Langley, he must have good reasons that he does not wish to share with anyone, even his own child. Larson bristles, holding back barely concealed anger. It's not his idea. It's that weak weed of a Malkavian, that seneschal. He nearly spits the word. Just the same, claim the coterie. They've been ordered to retrieve Langley, and so they have to bring him back. They have no hope of fighting Larson. But if he impedes their course, if he stops them, then he'll be the one to answer to the prince. After all, says Hope, 4 years ago we faced Task Force Harker. And finally, we have proof in this man's hand that it's real, it exists. And he's our ticket inside. Fine, relents Larson. Anything happens, the prince wakes up in a pool of gasoline in a dawn raid, that's on your heads. And I'll be making sure you're the ones who are held accountable. You and that chicken shit Malkavian. We now proceed with this special one-on-one session, A Little Hope. So, Hope, it has been several nights since you and the coterie managed to bring Martin Langley back to Prince Squizzy.
Has it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been only a handful of nights.
Alright.
There's been one pressing issue on your mind, and that is, after you returned Martin Langley to the Prince, seeing how Sylvia now interacts with her sire. You remember several years ago, the last time you saw Sylvia's sire, that the two of them did not get along by any means. They hated each other's guts. And for all intents and purposes, the only reason you were helping him at all at that time is because he forced you by dominating Sylvia. And yet, images still linger in your head. Sylvia doting on him as, well, not like a child and a father, but perhaps more disturbingly like a lover.
Yeah. This is not one of those healthy relationships, at least from what I've seen so far.
Definitely not. You've seen her sit on his lap. You've seen him wrap his arm around her, dote on her, call her my darling. Even...
And that isn't... Now, it wouldn't be an issue if there weren't the discrepancy from 4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of the things Larson said.
Larson's words still echoing in your mind. That bitch is bloodbound. Whatever that means.
What does that mean? But then I saw Squizzy feed Spider blood, and that as a punishment.
Yeah.
So... there are things to ask, but I'm not coming empty-handed.
Yeah, So when you
Right.
brought Martin back with Spider, Squizzy allowed Spider to live, thanks to Sylvia's argument that flew in the face of your own argument. But Squizzy decided to go with Sylvia, and he allowed Spider to live on the condition that Spider consume his blood and do so again on the subsequent 2 nights. In fact, as we are talking now, it's probably around the 3rd night that Spider has had to consume Squizzy's blood.
Yeah, Hope is a little upset she couldn't get in to see Sage and Jackie earlier, but they have things to do.
They do have things to do, but just the same, Hope, you're probably wondering, just in the back of your mind, given now that Spider's punishment, as it were, would be completed, that the 3 nights of drinking Squizzy's blood have come to pass, what has actually occurred? What did that all mean? And so, given the business with Spider and with Martin Langley, the Anarchs have been in, well, quite lately, over the last few nights, they've been furiously restructuring their ranks. You passed on the information to Thomas Roth that Squizzy and his seneschal Specs knew more than any of the Anarchs could have imagined. So you've been unable to get in touch with either Sage or Jackie for several nights. The one time you were able to get through to Sage on the phone, she quickly imparted that Thomas Roth, the Reeve of the Anarchs, had essentially called an impromptu rant, and that the Baron herself, Baron Tien Su, was questioning each Anarch, verifying their loyalties herself. And the Anarchs' activities in the city have become quite chaotic due to this. So tonight is the first night that you actually think you might have a chance to contact Jackie or Sage. So right now... Yep.
Okay, there is one time-sensitive thing I would have liked to have done.
Which is?
Our good friend Mr. 2.
Ah, yes.
I still have his phone.
Rick 2, you still have his phone?
Hope gives it 50-50 that Spider will either discard him or keep him. So, I'm leaning toward keep. As far as she knows, she pulled it off. He thinks 2 was dominated. He's going to eventually find the guy wandering in without his clothes or phone, looking like he got rolled.
So, what do you wish to do with his phone in the meantime?
He's going to report it as lost. So what Hope would like to do is get in there and basically set up something to where she's copied on any security emails.
Yeah.
That he gets to reset his password and things so that she can basically she'd like to set it up so she can access his phone online anytime.
Yeah. So essentially you're going to log into his email and await any security emails to pop up.
We're also copying any interesting emails and learning what we can from it.
So I will ask you to please go ahead and make an intelligence technology roll.
Hey. Not the smartest, but she does have good tech. Let me just pull my character sheet up. Probably important to have that out tonight. So, technology is a 2, intelligence is a 2. This is moderately important to me, so first I'm going to roll to rouse.
Yes.
I'm just seeing, and this is happening in the between times. Hey, no, I didn't get hungrier. All right. BR 6-1. 2 successes. Do we recharge to full willpower at every session?
We do.
Then I'll go ahead and spend a willpower here, and I'll attend the meeting with one less.
You're currently at full willpower. Any you spend now in this downtime, you will have spent next session. So
Rock. I will have spent next session.
Yeah. So consider this to be the start of next session in terms of willpower.
All right. Well, this could be important, so I'll spend a willpower. I've got lots.
Definitely.
So I say that now. But that is good enough for 4 successes.
So the very next night, after you return Langley and Spider to Squizzy, after you return to your tattoo parlor as the first rays of sun begin to peek through the windows and you just barely make it to your haven down in the basement and crash, you awaken the very next night as if no time has passed. One singular thing is on your mind: get into Q's phone. As soon as you pull yourself out of bed, you make your way upstairs, and before you even open the parlor for the night, sequester yourself in your office at the back of the little brick building, pull the door shut, put the do not disturb sign hanging on the doorknob so that any of the other employees of the tattoo parlor won't get in the way of this. And then the next hour or so, do whatever you can to ensure you can read Chu's messages. Go into his email app on his phone. This allows you to access his emails. There's no activity yet, but by fiddling around in the options, triggering some often overlooked security settings, you manage to extract his email password from the app. You then type it in on the dinky old Windows 7 computer that sits in the back office of the parlor. Go into your internet browser and log into his email account right there on your computer, and you make sure you tick the setting to never lock you out. And then, sure enough, later that night, the night passes without event.
And of course, the phone's GPS is turned off, the battery's out once I'm telling you that.
Battery's off, no one's going to be ringing it. And so you pass your shift without incident. You see a couple of your regular clients, some of them here for routine body work, a couple here for the secret menu, members of the Anarchs. And as you do work for them, I'd like you to do a charisma streetwise or etiquette check, please.
Alright. And of course, so I've remade my face appropriately for...
Once more in the guise of the tattoo artist.
Charisma Raphael. So charisma etiquette, yeah. That's a whopping 4 dice. 2 successes.
2 successes. So one of the Anarchs that you end up working on this night is Colin Dog Cisco, you know reasonably well. And normally he's not a regular fixture in your tattoo parlor, but somehow he's got the idea in his head that you are offering bone shanks on your secret menu. And you basically, as soon as he gets into the tattoo parlor, he looks around and looks at one of the other tattoo artists, one of the regular employees, one of the mortals, and he leans in and he says in a half whisper, "Yeah, the bone shanks. You still doing those?"
I overhear and I'm like, "Ole say, we have all of those you need. The design is very popular."
Looks over at you, Raphael.
Come on to the back.
He nods, and as you lead him into the back, he looks around, whistling, and he says, "So, you work for Hope, or..."
Poink! You're in the ballpark. Hope's voice.
He laughs, and he says, "Oh, well, you know, Sage said you were doing stuff under the table. Look, be honest, most of it scared the fucking hell out of me. But
That's fair.
then I heard bone shanks. And I thought, you know, there's gonna be a time shit's gonna hit the fan, as it often does in the life of Colin the dog Cisco. And, you know, sometimes I don't have my trusty crowbar. And voila.
It's good to have an edge.
Shank.
Yeah. Good thing is it uses your bone too, so if you put a little extra strength behind it, ain't gonna break.
He smiles, relishing the various fantasies that you can now see running through his head that involve him shanking someone with a piece of his bone. When you lead him to the back room, you gesture towards the chair. He just drops himself down into it without a word.
And if it does somehow break, you can heal it, because that's what we do.
Raises an eyebrow slightly and he says, now, look, no, it's not my place to ask questions. And, you know, Sage and Jackie were tight-lipped about this, but bone shanks, rib armor, changing your face, like, that's Zemeis shit.
Well, Colin, I'll be honest with you. I was truthful when I came to the city and said I didn't know who my sire was. And if you don't know your sire, that makes you caitiff.
Nods. Yeah.
Now, I've gotten a few powers since then that get very weird. So, and people tell me that's a Misi shit. So,
Yeah.
I don't know my sire, but I mean, it's possible they could have been one of those.
He shrugs. He says, you don't know your sire. Caitiff, yeah. Technically Caitiff. Let's go with that. See, I ask because, you know, word on the street, and this is between you and me. He says, word on the street, you know, Baron Sue is, well, you know, she's restructuring. She's seeing who's considered worthy of being at the rants and who's not, who's getting cut loose. Because, well, not sure how this came out exactly, but we've got a security leak. Squizzy and that weird fucking Malkavian bastard he's got as a seneschal know we're in the city. And see, Baron Sue doesn't want any of us to give Squizzy or his seneschal any reason to jump the gun. And, well, you know, getting strange body weapons made by, well, clans that until recently were Sabat, clans that Squizzy's run out of the city and made his decree that if they ever show up again, they're to be killed on sight.
Oh, that's lovely.
He says, so, yeah, you're a caitiff. Just covering my bases, you know, because if, you know, knowingly, if I knew you were a Zemeis, and Baron Sue is going to ask me later this night at the rant, you know, where I've been, who I seen, you know, I got to be truthful. You know what Toreadors are like, right? She has a way of getting you to divulge everything. You don't lie to the Baron, and, well, I wouldn't lie to the Baron. She, unlike the Prince, deserves our respect. I wouldn't want to do her a disservice.
Right. You can tell her I'm a caitiff of uncertain heritage who either lucked into or got unlucked into some really weird powers.
Right.
And as far as I know, it's the truth, because honestly, what I've heard about the Zemisi men, they are some sick motherfuckers.
He just leans in, narrows his eyes, and says, yeah, sick puts it lightly. These guys are... Let's hope you never have to find out. And whatever you use your powers for, let's hope it stays strictly confined to tattoos and piercings, the occasional bone shank. He says, especially with all that stuff that happened with Spider and the Prince's child. Like, Spider's back on the streets, right? And something's wrong with him. Like, every time any of us go to the Black Room, meet up with him, he sort of shuffles over to you and he asks, you know, what's up with the Anarchs? What's the Baron doing? Any rants coming up? Know where they are? Like, who asks these questions, man? Like, you know, you're either invited to the rants or you're not. Spider hasn't been, and he knows he hasn't been, you know, on account of...
It strikes me that the person who asks that question is the person who's been told to ask those questions. Because those sound like the questions you're told to ask.
Cisco nods and he says, look, I know you were there that night. I wasn't there. But rumours circling around. Spider's bloodbound to Squizzy. Which means... Spider, you know, was never part of the inner circle. We could always count on him for a favour. Bikers were always there with muscle if we needed them. But he's flipped. And if someone we trust can flip that easily, we gotta be careful. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you.
He says, that's why, you know, I hear the Baron even, you know, called him, spoke to him, said that ghoul of his, Mr. Chew, Broderick, cut him loose. She even offered to have, well, you know, I was going to be the one to make him disappear if it came to that. Spider says no. He says, Broderick's fine. You know, we've made up. Nothing to be concerned about. Guy's back in the biker gang, still there at the Black Room playing security, as if nothing happened, as if he didn't get beaten to within an inch of his life, have his arm torn off. And then at this, he lowers his voice and he just looks at you knowingly and he says, not that I'm saying, you know, anyone's shooting rumors around who did that or anything, but everyone knows Chew and the rest of the bikers got served, and, well, that's a liability. Baron Sue doesn't want liabilities. Spider says no. He doesn't care. Holds out his arm.
It surprised me.
Rolls up his
sleeve. It surprised me. Alright, man. You want it to pop at the elbow or at the wrist?
He thinks for a moment. He goes, ooh. Let's go both.
Both? Okay. Actually, a flexible joint. Yeah, that could work. Now, I do have a question. This does repurpose a couple tendons and some body mass. So, basically, I ask him, would he like to move a little more slowly? Would he like to be a little less sturdy? Or would he like to have his muscles slightly weakened?
He smiles and he laughs. Cisco. Well, you know, everyone says about old Cisco. The dog hits like a truck. He ain't fast, but he hits like a truck. So go ahead. I don't care if I move slow as molasses. I'm gonna have 2 bone shanks coming out of my arm.
Well, alright then. Okay. And I'll go ahead and pinch the nerve. And get to work.
So go ahead and please make your flesh crafting roll.
So resolve plus crafts. I believe.
It is, yes. Plus protean.
Oh, plus... wow, okay. So 10 dice later... hang on. What the... I hate to do this, but I'm going to have to willpower this, because I got one success
on your dice pool of 10, of course.
There we go, 3 more, so 4 successes.
4 successes.
All right.
So it takes you several hours, pretty much the rest of your shift,
This is the first double I've ever had to rig. So
Please describe how you do this.
So basically I'm using the same tendon. And what I'm doing, with 4 successes it's a little difficult. What I'm doing is kind of putting it on a bit of a cord. So basically he'll have to rev up his arm beyond the usual, just pop to him. He'll have to kind of roll the tendon back. And as it does, it'll pop out the two shanks. They're kind of attached to the cord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a hidden blade.
Pretty much.
So
kind of like a chainsaw action with the tendon, only it doesn't keep moving. It just
ripcord.
Yep.
So you hang the do not disturb sign on the door, and before you pull the door shut, you just look down the hallway to where one of the mortal tattooists is sitting at the front reception desk, and just call out, "Cancel my appointments." She nods. Pull the door shut, and you get to work. And despite the look of Colin the dog Cisco, big muscled man in a leather vest who looks like he's seen some shit, he's really squeamish. Several times he chances a glance at what you're doing, immediately goes white in the face, and clasps his other hand to his mouth.
For us, that's impressive.
Nearly.
So basically, after he does a few, I'm going to roll a screen over so he can't see.
You roll.
Because this isn't the first time this has happened.
You roll a screen over it, and this prevents him from looking, but a couple of times he hears the bones snap and crack, and each time they do, you just hear him gurgle. But by the end of it, it's done. You remove the screen, and you take a step back as he stands up, white in the face, and promptly keels over, vomiting a puddle of Vitae all over the chair.
Oof. Easy, man, easy. Okay, I'm gonna in-punch the nerve now. It's gonna feel weird, but it shouldn't hurt.
He winces.
How are we doing?
He winces, he stands there, still red in the face, sort of uncertain on his feet, unstable. Then he holds out his arm, and completely ignoring the fact that he just threw up blood all over the chair, takes a step forwards to where you've got a mannequin, this clothes store mannequin standing up against the wall. It's covered in puncture marks and scratches and scuffs. He stands up to it, holds out his hand, and as if he's revving an engine, as if he's pulling the ripcord on a chainsaw, he pulls his arm back, and then with a cracking sound, the two blades shoot out. He lunges forwards and smashes his arm into the mannequin, nearly slicing its head clean off. Takes a step back.
Damn.
Admires his handiwork.
You do it like a truck.
Looks at you and smiles, and he folds his fist. He folds his fingers into his hand, clenches his fist, and the blades withdraw into his flesh. Beaming, he looks at you and he says, "Oh, well, I'm gonna have to go out to hunt, but I've got a new toy."
Yeah. Piece of advice. If you ever want it gone, I can remove it, no charge. Or, you know how you heal like fire? Takes a shitload of blood. You can do the same here, but yeah, again, it takes a shitload of blood. If you ever want it gone permanently.
He just nods, looks back towards the nearly beheaded mannequin.
Though, I have a feeling that's going to be a while before you want to change.
He smiles and he says, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be wanting to get rid of this anytime soon. He says, now, payment. I understand you've been trying to get in touch with Sage and Jackie.
Yeah. There's stuff they need to know.
He says Baron Sue's got everyone on a short leash at the moment. Got to call in, let her know where you are. The whole thing's very canned. no calling out without permission. Check in with her every night after you hunt, that sort of thing. But I'm the Reeve, and, you know, I've got the Baron's ear. And I'll put a word through, say Sage can call out tonight. Maybe even come visit you.
That'd be good. This is super sensitive stuff we need to talk about.
He nods. He says, well, we'll get to it straight away. Then he flexes his arm once more. Just looks at it admiringly. And then he nods in approval. He says, yeah, I think this is going to come in very handy. He says, well,
Hope so.
Raphael, Mr.
Senor.
Kaitif.
Senor.
He chuckles. He says, I'll take up no more of your time. Keep your phone next to you. Sage will call when she can.
I look forward to it, my friend.
He steps towards the door, opens it, and as he steps out into the hallway, you hear him just laughing. I can't wait for someone to fuck with me now. As his footsteps recede into the distance.
And I'll smile and put the fake use tattoo blanks and tracings for a, bunch of broken bones that I discard whenever somebody asks for a bone shank, so the mortal employees don't get too curious.
Yeah. The mortal receptionist, she looks over at you as you step out into the hallway. She brushes the dyed green hair out of her face, and she says,
Miranda.
That guy seems happy with your work.
For such a simple thing, it can bring such happiness.
He says, look, one of these days, Raphael, I'm going to have to ask, what is it you do that keeps him coming back? Because, I was top tattoo artist in this suburb for a long time. You start working here, business doubles, and all these customers only want to see you. Just like, I can only assume it's some sort of strange Latin American voodoo thing.
We are all born with superpowers. Is why the US wants to keep us out so badly. They fear us.
She chuckles, and then she says, well, Mr. Superstar, you're closing tonight. She reaches into the pocket of her denim apron, tosses you the keys, and she says, I'm out.
You have a good one, Miranda. Give my regards to Sue, eh?
He turns, and as she disappears around the corner, you hear her say, one of these days. And then you hear the sound of the door being pulled open and pulled shut behind her, and you are alone. Just as you begin to move down the hallway to lock the door, you hear a sound from your office. The email notification.
It's Christmas. I'll quickly lock up, then go check the email.
Go check the email, and there on the screen, just as you expected, an email with the subject line, reset password.
And we'll show the password and get my pen ready.
You open it. Inside is choose new password. You write it down and then immediately log out and log in again with the new password.
Biker 2. That's original.
As soon as you log in, you hear the sound again. There's a new email pops up. And it's... The subject line is strange. The subject line simply states Intel. And it is from a arachnid88@gmail.com.
Oh, I wonder who that could be. And if they had 88 means it's not the same thing as it is in America, now I hate Spider even more. But
And so you click on the email and open it. It's short and sweet. It says, "Chew, you fucked up. I'll let it slide if you get me information on the following. What follows is a list of people, most of whom you recognize as Anarchs. On the list are Jackie and Sage, Thomas Roth, Cisco, along with other names of people you haven't met. And then you're very surprised. If you had a heart, it would skip a beat right now. At the very bottom of the list is a single first name in quotation marks. Hope.
Hope. Oh, that's not surprising. I'm the only member of the coterie he didn't see during the home invasion, and I was there asking for his death in the office. So I've been kind of half expecting something like this.
It's all the email.
You don't
contains.
say that a man needs to die and not have repercussions.
Yeah. That's all that the email contains, and as soon as you close out of it, you notice that a little emblem appears on the icon showing that Spider has responded to it. So you click on it again and open Choose Reply. And Choose Reply simply says, "Got it, boss. Get to it as soon as possible. We'll do the best I can."
So, print screen, print screen, copy. Evidence chain.
The printer
Best of
words
all.
as the paper is expelled. Copy of the email, a list of names.
Goes in the briefcase that I'm gonna give Jackie and Sage. Okay.
And then, speaking of Jackie and Sage, as you click out of the email app, your phone begins to vibrate. On the screen, it says Sage.
Oh, already? I start putting my face together. And the rest of me, even though it won't show up on the screen. Hello.
Her voice starts screaming through the speaker immediately. "Yeah? Cisco said you needed me to call."
Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff I need to tell you in person that is going to help you and a lot of your friends.
In the background, you can hear what sounds like heavy bass music mixed with tens or maybe hundreds of voices shouting and screaming. She shouts over the din and she says, "Help? Like how? Like to do with this leak or what?"
Yes, and also our good friend 2-Eye.
She says, yeah, Spider's Ghoul."
No. 4 years ago, 2-Eye.
"Right," she says. "What about him?"
Okay.
She says, "You want to... Is it something
We
you
need
want to
to
tell
talk.
me over the phone?"
No, this is gonna have to be a face-to-face. I understand if you're busy right now, but this needs to be a sooner the better kind of thing.
There's silence for a moment. You hear more of the music, and then you hear a male voice somewhere in the distance shout, "Squeezy and get fucked!" And then Sage comes back. She breathes deeply. "Look, Baron Sue's got her eye on everyone at the moment. No one leaves without her say-so. Was barely allowed to call out until Cisco said, 'Meet me first thing tomorrow night. Come on down to the Red Star.'"
Okay. Yeah, that should work. Alright. I will. I'll see you there.
"Will do," she says. And then just before she hangs up, you hear...
And thank you.
She says, "And if your information is useful, I'm thanking you in advance." And then just before she hangs up, you hear more shouting, and then mid-sentence she's cut off as she's saying, "Watch where you're fucking throwing that fist, you..." Click
That was her having fun voice.
Yeah. So, your shift is done for the night. You seem to be well fed, and so, nothing else to do. Finish locking up the store, look over at the clock. It's already 4:30 a.m. Working on Cisco took most of the night.
Oh,
So,
that's fine.
Sigh, tie it to the basement, pull the door shut behind you, flick the latch, to lie down on your fold-out mattress.
There's a couple more doors after that one. I figure one point of the Haven went into security, so there's a few locked doors.
Go ahead and actually describe what security is there in your Haven.
So, I wasn't envisioning it as a basement apartment, but if you'll let me have it, that's fine. It's set up in a corner, so I don't have any neighbors.
Yeah.
And there's pretty much solid stone. I've soundproofed the place cheaply with corkboard.
Well, the tattoo parlor sits on the corner of a street, so there's no neighbors.
Okay.
But
All right.
The basement's the only place where one could conceivably, set up a place to sleep. Otherwise, it's just a shop.
Yeah. It's got a nice metal door on the outside. And inside it's separated into a couple different rooms. There's no loft here. Space has been broken down into smaller rooms. And as such, the path to the bedroom takes about you through the metal door and two wooden locked doors. They're not enough to stop a kindred or slow down anyone or stop anyone determined with the right tools, but they'll slow down and make noise and
give you enough time to awaken and assess the situation you're in.
And it's actually a pretty nice mattress with sheets and decorations and stands all around it with pictures on each one and a little memento here, there, a piece of clothing, a discarded bit of cloth, a ring, something. And lately, on a big leather jacket.
And
from a fellow named Two, who I did a solid by returning the use of his arms to.
Hell's Angels logo, or what's still legible of it after the entire arm of the jacket's been ripped off. Sitting there facing you as you lie down, and as you sink into the mattress, your gaze passes over a smartphone sitting on the table right near the bed.
Eric's phone
From your very first night.
Mm-hmm.
We skip forward to the next night. It's roughly 10 past 8 p.m. You've woken up, you've hunted, feeling well fed, and as you lick the last droplets of blood off your wrist, climb onto your motorcycle and start gunning down the expressway into St. Kilda.
Oh, I have a motorcycle? Sweet, alright.
You've taken an affection to motorcycles after that display at the Black Room where you fawned over the Harleys. And
there was a little genuine admiration there.
And so you acquired one for yourself, and this is the first time you've actually taken it out for a spin.
Yeah. I figure it isn't a Harley, it's a little Kawasaki or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, sleek. Something sleek. Something nice.
Sleek. Something that matches hope.
Yep.
So, the fresh vitae running through your veins, you guide your newly acquired motorcycle down the expressway, through Port Melbourne, past the CBD, the city, of course, even at this early hour, already brightly lit up to serve as a beacon in seemingly endless blackness. The bay, as per usual, as you pass by, nothing more than a black abyss that seems to stare back at you as you stare into it. And soon, all of this gives way to the industrial squalor, the hipster bars, the beginnings of gentrification in St. Kilda. You see the overpass ahead that the Red Star rests almost perfectly underneath.
All right.
Drive up to the curb, kick your foot down onto the concrete as you turn the ignition on the handlebar, killing the engine, and the tires screech to a halt right there in front of the Red Star. The place looks just the same as it was the last time you were here. The flags.
I'll make sure I'll make sure the bike is in front of the camera.
Make sure the bike is in front of the camera so everyone can see. Then you step...
Not the greatest neighborhood either.
No, not the greatest neighborhood. You look around.
Though you'd have to be a fool to annoy Sage.
There are parts of this suburb that are more trendy and upscale, but the Red Star is a dive bar. That's just how Sage likes it. And it's under the overpass for a reason. It's just the same as it was last time you were here. The flags and leathers still in the window. Posters of old gigs emblazoned across the brick facade. Walk towards the door and push them open and step inside. Your senses immediately assaulted by alt rock music. The bar itself is empty. No one is present. Sage has made sure it can only be the two of you. And sure enough, there she is, behind the bar, leaning against the wall, nodding her head to the music, her eyes closed, her hair whipping around her.
It is so goddamn good to see you. And she's
eyes.
Getting a hug unless she objects.
Opens her eyes, sees you coming with your arms outstretched, and then you see her shrug, roll her eyes, and she leans forward as you step behind the bar and embrace her.
Hey, humor me. Most kindred get a little touch-starved and don't even know it, you know?
She
Alright.
racks herself, looks you up and down, and says, looking good. More convincing.
Thanks.
Clothes actually fit you now?
They do. I even added a mole.
She smiles. She says, yeah. See? Those are the things that make the disguise perfect. The little imperfections.
Yeah. But it's getting there. It's still a work in progress, but everything visible is pretty much fixed.
She looks around and she says, so, just you? Rest of the coterie not outside?
No, it's just me.
She nods. And she says, good. Look,
there's reasons for
that. Bar's not going to be open tonight. It's just you and me.
Okay.
Not even allowed to take mortals, let alone other Anarchs. Baron Sue says no Anarch activities until the restructuring's complete. It's going to take a couple nights, maybe even a couple weeks. She sighs, sinks into one of the
restructuring,
spins it around
like a corporate office.
Corporate office, indeed. She says, you know, Baron Sue was dyed-in-the-wool Cam before she was Baron, and I think in times like this it comes out. So in either case, Jackie feels right at home. She leans in, she says, Jackie ever tell you about, you know...
About...
She smiles and she says, well, you didn't hear it from me, in case she asks. But Jackie used to be the Herald. So, needless to say, a situation like this, all the Anarchs in one place, hurling accusations at each other, Baron trying to find out who's loyal and who's not, this is Jackie's jam. She loves this shit.
Okay. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I can imagine she'd be killer at this.
She takes a stretch, hangs her arms over the back of her seat, and then lifts her feet up, places them on top of the bar. And she says, right, you said this was important.
It is. So, this is going to take some time to unpack, though. Because there's multiple things to touch upon here. So if I'm a little long-winded, please bear with me.
She says, she looks at you and then she smiles and she says, so long as all of this talking somewhere down the line leads to some fascist prick getting punched in the face, I'm all for it.
I pull out the briefcase and put it down. That can be arranged, probably. Okay. So, you remember when I called you and told you what was going on with our job for the prince and Spider?
That's right, all the stuff with Spider. And
okay.
Look, didn't come from me, but everyone knows someone working for Squizzy rolled Spider and his goons, and everyone knows after all that he's back on the street. And, well, put two and two together, clearly he's flipped and he's under Squizzy's control.
Oh, yeah. So, a few things. I told you we were going to try to talk with him, and that's what we tried to do. We went to the, that bar, the Roth's bar, the Black Room.
Yeah, the Black Room. Just they don't serve drinks as good as mine.
And we had a talk with Roth. We told him what was going down, and that, you know, we respected him and were trying to talk to him without any trouble. He said sure, and then he led us out into a yard and slammed the door behind us, and there were a bunch of Spider's bikers there waiting to take chains to whoever showed up.
Yeah, one of Spider's tests of strength, I presume. She just should have brought me along. I would have, thrown their bikes at them.
It's fine. I told one to go cry in a corner, and he did. I still feel a little bad about that.
She says, so you spilled the beans to Roth. Roth's gone to Baron Sue. Now we're all in this big fucking mess.
It's a bit bigger than that. Yeah, but I told Roth that he'd been made. And he had. And after we took down... Spider's ghoul, Broderick 2, came out of the shadows and tried to shank us while we were beating up his bikers. And I don't know if it's a Lasombra thing, but Sylvia touched his arm and made half of it fall off.
She says, yeah, Thomas kept talking about someone ripping Chew's arm off. Apparently he was very impressed.
Yeah, I'm the reason he's not dead or laid up with sepsis, because I put his arm back together in exchange for information. Then made him forget the whole thing.
She says, and now he's back working for Spider.
Yeah. Also, I might have hacked his phone account and gotten an in on his emails. So.
Ooh. Her eyebrows raise and she says, That I like.
I brought a few of those.
Didn't know you were up with all of the modern shit.
I'm not really great at it, but when you're up against somebody who thinks Biker 2 is a good password, it's, you know.
She snorts. Then she says, well, I mean, the guy decided he was going to shank you in the Black Room. And look, don't know if Thomas mentioned this, but he's the warlord. Anarchs go to war. Someone needs to disappear. Baron's going to ask him to do it. Kind of like Cisco, but Cisco, well, he's the Reeve. He can only do it if there's a good reason. But Baron wants someone gone. Thomas is the guy who does it. So, well, everyone's in agreement that Spider is no longer one of us. So if you've come to tell us Spider's doing all sorts of shifty stuff, we're right ahead.
I mean, I could tell you rain is wet. Spider will do shifty stuff. That's not... But I did want to let you know that I'm keeping an eye on him, because free fun. Anyway, we decided Spider probably wasn't going to talk to us, so I made myself look like 2. And we went to go try to sneak into his haven by using 2's phone to call him away. problem is Spider was a little too clever for that, and well, he found us trying to spring his captive. Do you know about his captive?
Yeah. Someone the prince wanted to embrace? That's all
It gets
know.
deep. It gets deeper than that. And that's something that the Baron probably needs to know.
She says,
So-
Baron Sue said that Spider had information about the guy. But I guess you must have got to him before he had a chance to pass it along.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure why Spider didn't hand along the information. Anyway, we bust the guy out, and he starts. He's been like starved in a little cell for a while, and he starts tossing around the word blank bodies, and it's clear he knows all about us.
Her eyes go wide as soon as you say this, and she says...
And that's why I said 2I, Second Inquisition, over the phone. I wasn't going to say Second Inquisition over the phone, so I was hoping you'd pick up on 2I.
She whispers... She whistles, and then she says, yeah, no shit.
Shit. This guy, the guy's name
Why
is...
does Squizzy want to embrace...
Oh, I'm getting to that. So, you know, the guy has his own dossier full of secret stuff, which I photograph and then tell him to forget that I did that. And he's basically talking on the way about how he flipped because he wants to live forever, and the prince promised him that he could live forever if he came over bearing gifts. So, Also, I tried to tuck Spider's torpid form under some garbage, but the others saw me and said, no, let's bring it to the prince. And I didn't really have a way to quietly shove him off the pier, so...
And so
we had to bring him along.
Instead of having that thug Larson rip his head off, Squizzy blood bonds him, sends him back out onto the streets. Gotcha.
That's exactly what happened. But it's interesting you mentioned Larson, because on the way back with the Second Inquisition guy, whose name is Martin, and Spider's body, Larson shows up.
No
and
shit, she says.
And Larson tells us, hey, I don't want Martin to make it to Squizzy. I want him to go with me, so I can twist his head off, and I want you guys to lie about it.
As if.
At first I think he's telling us what's going to happen, and there's no way we can stop him because we're drained from the night, and he's Larson. But then we start telling him, hey man, no trouble, and he keeps trying to convince us, and to realize he needs our buy-in for this to work.
Yeah, because he wants you to lie for him, and...
Right. He can bully us, sure, but
Squizzy, for all his faults, guy knows if someone's lying to him, and he knows if they've been put up to it.
Yeah, and we ask him what the heck he wants to go in Squizzy for, and he says that a couple of interesting things. One is that Squizzy's out of touch. Squizzy is underestimating the Second Inquisition, and he basically doesn't want he thinks that Martin coming in as a Second Inquisition ploy. And the real takeaway I'm getting from this is Larson actually has a bit of a independent streak and is willing to go against Squizzy when he sees a clear conflict. That's something I put a pin in for later.
And she just ponders this for a few moments, and she looks back at you, and she says, "Guy's always had a rebellious streak. Squizzy likes to think he holds Larson's leash. Larson? Well, there's a reason Squizzy uses him as muscle, but didn't actually give him a station in court. Notice he's not a primogen, he's not the sheriff.
Yeah.
He's the Scourge, he's dumb muscle.
And that interests me.
Squizzy lets
but
him control...
he wants to be more.
Of course he wants to be more. If you were the prince's child, you'd want to be more too.
Yeah.
So Squizzy lets him control the drug trade. That's the token thing he gives him. Squizzy's Squizzy's out of it. He wouldn't know how the criminal world works these days. So Larson's the one who does that. Squizzy thinks it's, something to keep Larson pacified, but ask anyone in this town and they'll tell you Larson knows his shit, and any criminal activity in Melbourne, somewhere up the line, that's where Larson's gonna be.
There's a brain under there.
She nods.
I actually respect the guy more than I do the prince, but anyway.
She says, speaking of brains, she says, for Larson to outwardly go against the prince like that, to track you guys down and ask you to lie, then there's only one reason he would do that, and that's because of Specs.
Think Specs put him up to it?
Could be, she shrugs. She says, but what I'm thinking is Squizzy didn't want to embrace Martin at all. No, I think Specs has told Squizzy that embracing Martin is something he wants to do. Squizzy will do anything that Malk tells him to do.
I see. Anyway, we decide that we want Larson. We don't want to give this guy to Larson. We decide that the group needs to see the job through, and honestly, I'm a bit torn about it. But I'm erring on the side of this second Inquisition guy should be on the level, and if he's not, then the Squizzy can have people dominate the fudge out of him to make sure he is on the level.
She just scoffs. She says, that's if Squizzy even sees that something's not on the level, and he's dumb.
Yeah, I see that now. But at the time, we needed to convince Larson to get out of there without turning the mission objective into a fine red mist.
And
so you'll love
you
this.
For that, she says.
Oh, you'll love this. Don't go spreading it around, though. You'll love this. We're arguing with the guy, and he's just not seeing reason, as he's just being stubborn. So at one point, I finish a long monologue about how, if he just takes a moment and thinks, he'll come to his senses. And then I realize my beast has taken over, and I'm like standing on him, grabbing him by the lapels to pull my face up right next to his while I've been shouting the whole time.
She looks back at you and she says, oh, right. What clan? Did we ever establish what clan you are? Because, see, for me, that's just normal negotiation. But for you, that means you were riled up, and I'm not actually sure why Larson didn't just ash you on the spot.
He did bounce me off the pavement, but after that he actually seemed to have low respect.
Well, of course, she says. Bruja.
Yeah, it's the only reason I haven't apologized to him. Because I think you take that as a sign of weakness.
Exactly, she says. You want us to respect you. Don't try the silver tongue route like a Ventru would. You go out there and chuck a car. We'll respect that.
Alright. Anyway. We get Spider and Martin to Squizzy. And Specs, the whole crew's there. Larson and Specs and Father Patrick and...
Ugh, that guy. She shudders.
Yeah.
As she says this.
Oh, one of the things Larson dropped during his trying to convince us was that he had blood-bound Sylvia. What is a blood-bound?
So as you say this, she just nods knowingly. And she says, well, yeah, I mean, you've seen Father Patrick, right? It's exactly what that creep would do. Like, goes without saying, Sylvia is not in control of her own actions. I thought that would be pretty obvious.
She's been acting funny where the father's concerned. What exactly did he do to her?
So, you've seen it yourself. The two hated each other. on tenterhooks. First time Sylvia and you guys are in here. Well, yeah, Sylvia looks just about ready to throw in with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, well, the few times she's been seen out on the town, she's been with him, sitting on the guy's lap, holding his hand. It's like they're in love all of a sudden.
So it's fake love? It's coercion?
Coercion, she says. So, when you were there, tell me this, because, everyone assumes this is the case, but you were actually there. Did Squizzy make Spider drink his blood?
Yes, is that blood bounding?
She nods. She says,
Oh.
well,
Oh my.
it's not something we do in polite company. It's something that, the Cam love to force down their throats. Another way for elders to control the young.
Oh, man.
Drink someone's blood 3 separate nights. You are under their complete control. A puppet.
For how long?
They're your true love, your best friend. You'd do anything for them.
That's enslavement.
Enslavement, she says. As I said, something the Cam just loves. And it lasts, well, I don't know the specifics. In fact, I'd hate to bring it up to Jackie, but Jackie would be the one who would know specifically, right? But what's said is it needs to be reinforced at least maybe a month or 2 months.
Really? Jackie.
Void a drink, and Bond's still there, gets weaker and weaker over time. They say it goes away, but it takes a damn long time. We're talking a year or more.
Still.
She looks at you and she leans in and she says, Jackie, when she got away from the Cam and we got her off Maria Diamante's teat, she wanted to run back to her, even though she hated her guts. We had to keep Jackie under constant guard for 12 months, until finally she just decided she didn't want to go back anymore.
I don't know Maria Diamante. Was she like...
She says. Toreador Primogen, you'll remember her.
Oh, right. Sorry, I think she's like spoken to me like once.
Of course, she says, and probably will never speak to you again, but...
Yeah, okay. That's another reason to avoid her. Jackie, important question. Maybe a noob question. Do vampires... Do we digest blood in our stomachs? Is that where the magic kicks in?
She thinks for a moment, then she screws up her face and she says... What am I, a doctor? She's like, I've never had a look, but like, that seems to be where it goes.
Okay. But I mean, there's a delay after we drink blood and then you feel it kicking in.
Well, yeah, she says, so logically it has to go down somewhere. I wouldn't exactly say we digest it, but it's in our bodies.
So if you divert the blood, and if it never reaches the stomach...
Perhaps sensing
Jackie?
where you're going, Sage just looks at you. She looks into your eyes, and she says, you're gonna use those creepy flesh-crafting powers to divert the blood in Sylvia's body.
Maybe.
Well...
This is gonna be tricky.
She says...
I'm going to have to test this on myself.
She says, hey,
there's only one way to test it.
But... I'm not volunteering for any testing, but... You're gonna need to know kindred anatomy. You'd know more than me. You actually do stuff to people's bodies.
Yeah.
She thinks for a moment, and then she says, Now, you know the Tremere. Derek's clan.
Yeah. They do crazy stuff.
You know the head of the Chantry, Professor Cypher. He's a Primogen. But there are other Tremere. She says they call themselves House Goratrix. And they don't like the establishment. They'll do anything to stick it to the man. She says, now, I won't claim that I'm best friends with them or anything, but I do happen to have one of them who owes me a favor.
Oh, that makes things simpler, and he can basically tell me how the biology of it works. Tell me if this idea has any merit, maybe give me a few pointers.
Indeed, she nods.
Then that's great, because now that I know where I'm going with this... Oh, I do have one more thing to ask. Once I get this set up in myself, once I need to test it, and there's only one way to test it is by drinking kindred blood and seeing if I get bloodbound. Jackie?
She looks left.
Once I get it set up, can I get a drink from you to see if it works or not?
At this, she just looks passively back at you, as if she's thinking.
Oh, Sage. Yeah.
And she says, this does not get back to Jackie. Ever.
Yeah.
Please make a charisma persuasion check, and you may add the Mauler dots to the dice pool.
It should be 1.
Yeah, should be.
Is she in body mod culture, by the way?
Well, yeah, she's got piercings and tattoos. You suspect they're from when she was, alive, but they're still there.
All right. 5 successes.
She looks silently back at you. She says again, this does not get back to Jackie.
It goes nowhere.
She says, and I would never do this.
I know.
I'm only doing this because you asked.
Which is why you're the right person.
She raises her fist to her mouth.
Not yet. I'm not... No. Once I get this put in.
She lowers her fist and she says, well, I was going to give you some to take it at your own leisure, but perhaps it might lose its potency. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that works.
But, she says, the Tremere I know goes by the name Alistair Kirk. And then she pulls out a piece of paper, scrolls down his name and a phone number, and she slides it along the bar. And she says, and here's his number if you ever need anything.
Okay, cool.
Guy studies spirits and enchantments. This isn't exactly his area of expertise, but if anyone's likely to know how a kindred processes blood, he would. Guy studies enchantments, curses, and well, the unlife we lead is a curse, is it not? Tell him I sent you, but if you want, I'll get in contact with him. I shall pull in that boon, have him divulge the necessary information, and get back to you.
All right. I'm assuming I shouldn't tell him about...
We'll exchange a minor boon for you to me.
And actually, I have something for you that'll even the score, hopefully. I was building up to this. But, well, a couple of things. Also, I'm assuming I shouldn't tell Alistair about the flesh crafty thingy.
She says, oh, no, please, definitely do not tell Alistair what you plan to do with the information.
All right. So I haul out the briefcase. So we get Martin, to continue the story, we get Martin back to Prince Squizzy. And Squizzy has Martin show off and demonstrate his skills. He gives the guy a smartphone. And Martin manages to look up Derek, everything he can about Derek's past life in like seconds. I'm a dabbler at hacking. Martin is scary good.
She shrugs and she says, so what are we talking? Name, Medicare number, bank accounts?
Oh yeah.
Missing persons reports from when he was embraced.
Yep.
She nods and she says, that shit's dangerous.
Yeah, it's time for the Anarchs to get masks, if they don't have them already, or get masks touched up, or have spares. And anyway, Squizzy bloodbound Spider and sets him on his mission. Martin came in, and I reach into the briefcase with a packet of information about the Second Inquisition operations in this city. Problem is, it's all encoded. And this is the stuff that I made scans of. And I start paper copies and a thumb drive.
Hand her the paper and she takes it. She rifles through it and sees page after page of coded phrases, numbers, meaningless nonsense. She just screws up her face and she says, well, I'm sure it's of use to somebody, but I can't understand a damn thing.
Yeah. Squizzy seemed to think it was gold. We kept a copy for ourselves. No, he doesn't know yet. He might never know. Derek is trying to decipher it on air, and he's the Tremere. And I'm hoping there's somebody on the Anarch side who can look into this too.
She says, well, there is Alistair. I already mentioned him. But, on the other hand, she thinks, and she says,
the Baron might know somebody. This could make her happy.
Maybe Sebastian? She looks over at you. She says, Sebastian Wilde, Ministry. He's an ambassador from Sydney. Apparently they got a Ministry prince up there. Not strictly an Anarch, but he's more on our side than he is Squizzy's. But handing it over to him would mean potentially getting back to Princess Sydney. She says, but Sydney Free State, Anarch City, I don't consider that a bad thing. On the other hand, she thinks more, and she says, our sweeper, Simone Alvard, the Anarch whose job it is to be up to date on everyone's info, run background checks, keep track of who's in the city, who's out, where they came from, who they owe allegiance to. Nosferatu, of course.
Oh, that makes sense.
She says, so, who do you think would be better?
It seems to me that the Second Inquisition's main line of work, demonstrated by Martin, is finding kindred.
Well, naturally.
So it seems to me that somebody who's in the same line of work might have better luck with a code, knowing that they share objectives. And that some of this is going to be in there.
She says, yeah, Simone.
I don't know Sebastian Wilde. I don't know Sydney. I really wouldn't care if it got back to Sydney, but the guy doesn't have as big a stake in the city as we do, so...
She says, last alternative, I guess, is we could just hand it straight over to Baron Sue, but, I mean, she was embraced on the gold fields.
Yeah.
Over 100 years old. She's not going to know the first thing about encryption.
And oh, that's the last thing I have to tell you. But yeah, the sweeper should be good for this. The last thing I have to tell you is that the prince interrogated Spider before he turned. And Spider confessed that the reason he hadn't killed Martin and handed the information off himself was because he was trying to get favors from Baron Sue. he named her in Squizzy's office. In front of Squizzy and the whole crew.
Sage just looks at you, speechless. And then, in perhaps the only display of her Brujah blood you've ever seen from her, she clenches her fist, brings it down with a slam on the counter. With a sickening crunch, a crack runs through the wooden surface, and
another one.
And the bar sinks into the floorboards. And then she just looks at you and she says, that is a very bad thing.
That, you see why I wanted to see you. And Squizzy's reply was, oh, the Anarchs are getting organized. Well then, this changes things.
Yeah, she says. Cisco finds out, he's going to want to investigate everyone who's even Cam adjacent to see what they know about us. Roth finds out, he's going to want to go to war immediately. I don't even know if I should tell Baron Sue about this.
I don't know what to tell you, but Squizzy knows now because Spider flipped hard. Oh, and these are the things that Squizzy has instructed Spider to look for, that he sent it on to 2 to try and get more digging done on.
She takes the printouts.
I pull out the printouts.
She looks at them and then she just laughs. Of course my name's on the list. Yeah, good luck.
And so's mine.
She says, yeah. And as I say, good luck. Like, we both know Hope's not your real name. She says, as for me... How many hippies called their daughters Sage in the 1960s? Like, good luck.
Yeah.
She says, I've been doing this vampire thing since 1971. You think I haven't changed my name at least once?
Yeah.
She says, what's got me worrying, though? Squizzy knows the Baron is in the city. And that shit ain't gonna fly for both sides. She leans in and she says, you know the history they got together, right?
I don't, actually. I assume I've heard that Squizzy took over from her sire?
She nods. She says, yeah. So, Prince of Melbourne, a Toreador by the name of Master Litton. Guy embraces Baron Sue in the 1880s on the Ballarat goldfields, brings her back. She lives it up in Cam society. Herald, Primogen, everything a young Toreador child of the prince could want. Then, it all goes to shit. It all goes to shit in one day. Not a night, a day. 1983. 16th of February. The mortals call it Ash Wednesday.
Oh.
Wildfires surged through the Victorian countryside. So many wildfires that plumes of smoke blacked out the sun. Squizzy gets up during the day, walks casually through the streets under the cover of the smoke, straight into Litton's haven. Diablerizes him right then and there. Declares himself Prince of the City, and hey, no one's in any position to do anything about it.
Diablerize? I don't know this word.
She says, right, yeah. The bad word. This didn't come from me. You know how you drink from mortals? You know how sometimes you can drink them until they die and there's nothing left?
I've never done that, but I've seen it done. Yeah, okay.
She says, well, sometimes you can do it to kindred. And if you do, they say, you absorb a little of what they once were.
Oh. Oh, wow.
You consume their soul, their essence.
Okay, that definitely sounds horrible.
So Squizzy, who until this point has been a little troublemaker, not someone to sneeze at, could still paste you into the floor if he wanted, but a troublemaker, no big threat to anyone. He drinks the prince, gets a power boost, declares himself Prince of the City. Baron Sue reads the writing on the wall. She flees to Adelaide. And there is where she plots her revenge. And it just so happens that revenge led to her becoming the Baron of Melbourne's very own Anarchs. Not because she sympathises with our cause per se, but because it's a way to get back at Squizzy. And Spider may have fucked it all up.
I think she needs to know.
She says, hey, information came from you. It's your call. I'll sit on it if you want. But give the word as soon as we're done here. I head to the rant. I prostrate myself before the Baron, curtsy like an obedient little cami servant, and I tell her Squizzy has her.
Okay. Well, I'm actually going to turn around and I'm going to try to do a... Can I do a politics roll to try and figure out the ramifications here?
You can. Go ahead, do an intelligence politics roll.
3 dice, but hey, you know, it's better than nothing. 1 success.
1 success. You know this much. Squizzy knows Baron Sue is in the city, but he doesn't know where or how. So far, she seems to be safe. Only those who are in her inner circle even know how to contact her. But this is not accounting for Specs. He seems to know more than anyone should, and you have no idea how. If Baron Sue knows that Squizzy knows, she knows where Squizzy is. And she has the advantage. She can begin to plan an attack while Squizzy works on finding her. You don't know exactly what will happen, but you can see that it's going to lead to conflict.
I don't see a way this doesn't lead to conflict. If we tell her now, she starts moving and maybe starts going on the offensive faster, because she'd go on the offensive anyway eventually. If we don't tell her, then Squizzy gets looking around and eventually finds her and goes on the offensive.
And as we don't know where Specs is getting his information from, you can consider that a certainty, Sage adds.
And she's not exactly Anarch, but she's Anarch adjacent enough in her goals that, I mean, I don't know how good a Baron she is. I'm assuming she's good or she wouldn't be the Baron.
Sage says, well, she's got it out for the prince.
Well, that's fair. He did it dirty.
She's internalized everything that he hates, which pretty much makes her the perfect Baron.
All right. I think we need to tell her. The thing is, if it gets around, it came from me.
It's got to come from somewhere, Sage says.
Yeah. I know at some point if Squizzy stays in charge that I'm going to have to shed this skin and fake my death and do another identity. I know it.
Tell you what, she says, I've taken you under my wing, so I guess this is on me. You want Baron Sue to know? I'll tell her, and hey, I may not look it to you, but unconnected in my own way. You may think all I'm good at is smashing furniture, but I can get information. And, well, maybe just this once, I tell the Baron this comes through my channels. I don't mention you at all. It doesn't have to get back to you.
That might be best. See, I'm in a weird spot with the coterie. Sylvia's bloodbound. And Patrick's all in with his new Camarilla buddies. Which means that they're invested in the Camarilla, at least for now. Maybe if I can get her free, we can get something working there. But I'm kind of being dragged in and having to do what the prince wants by association. But the good thing is I can bring things like this. I just hear the printouts and the information to you as I find it.
She pulls the printout, looks at them again, and slides them along the sagging counter towards a leather jacket she has hung at the very end. She says, Baron will hear it from me. You made the call, I'll take the fall.
Yeah, all right. I mean, you bring her vital info. I don't know it'll be a fall.
Well, just as well, she says. Shit's gonna hit the fan.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't cop it from the Baron. The shit's gonna hit the fan, and soon.
Yeah.
She smiles. I guess you didn't expect to have the fate of the city hanging in your fingertips this soon into your own life, huh?
Oh, Lord. I did not. Sage, look, it's a two-way street, you know? If I ask you to do something that's gonna hurt you, you let me know, alright?
Oh, I know, she says, and she winks.
If you need anything, you got me. None of that boon stuff, I'll just do it.
She just winks and says, oh, I know. And don't worry, I'll remember. None of this boon shit. I'm looking out for you, you look out for me. This point onwards, you're an Anarch. You've thrown in with me. You got it?
I got it.
Don't have to parade it around, don't have to fly the flags, but when it's time to cash in the chips, you're with us. You and me against the can.
Yeah. And I really, really hope that my coterie is going to see it the same way. Things go wild.
She just smiles, nods, and then she stands up.
Because I don't want to do them dirty either.
She stands up, walks over to the edge of the counter, grabs a leather jacket, slings it over her shoulder, bundles up the papers, takes the briefcase.
And the thumb drive.
And the thumb drive, which she slips into her vest pocket. And then she looks over at you and she says, let's hope everything falls into place. You work on Sylvia. Get Father Patrick out of the way. I think she'll be fine. Derek? Well, hopefully he'll remember who's been his friend and who hasn't. One last thing, she says. She begins to make her way towards the door, pulls it open, ready to escort you out.
I'll follow her out, yeah.
She says, you've got Dahlia. Word on the street, Dahlia's at every Toreador event. Maria Diamante's grooming her as Jackie's replacement, or so they say. But, again, just tell her to remember who's been kind. What I'm concerned about is the rumour that's been flying around. Thornton Adams, Ventru Primogen, someone in his circle fucked up. And Someone underneath that person is going to be given a punishment. And that punishment, I'm told, involves you in some capacity.
Wow. We just did, as far as the prince knows, we just did good stuff for him.
So you think, she says, but you've been useful, and Prince ain't going to let something that's useful to him.
No.
Now you get it, she says.
At some point, I'm going to have to die and start a new life.
Good on you that you can do that.
Before I get found out.
The rest of us are going to have to weather the storm. But just keep an eye out.
I can help with that too.
Oh, no doubt you can, she says. Not sure I'm ready for a different face and body yet, though. Hopefully it won't come to that.
Yeah. I can do masks too, you know. Computers are easy.
Might hit you up on that, she says. Keep an eye out. Watch your back. And just remember, I don't know what exactly, but the Ventry Primogen has his eyes on your coterie. Someone fucked up. For him, that's going to be an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, okay then. I'll give Alistair a call soon and see what I can do with everything else.
But remember, you need that information, educational purposes only. No telling him that you're going to be putting a special shaft in Sylvia's body.
Oh no, nobody but Sylvia and I are gonna know about that.
Her phone beeps, she reaches down, picks it up, looks at it and nods. And she looks at you and she says, Baron's calling us all in. Another rant, more people to question, more people who need to be cut loose. But better not keep her waiting.
Well, with that stuff I gave you, you shouldn't be cut loose.
Let's hope not, she says.
And hey, if you need to tell her where it came from, okay, I'll take the risk. If it comes down to that, and she won't take anything but a name, okay.
She just looks at you, and without saying anything, she nods. Then she turns. The two of you step out into the cold winter air. She pulls the door to the Red Star shut behind her. Looks at you, silently contemplating. And then she says, just remember, everything has a consequence. And then without saying anything, she turns, and in a singular motion, she leaps forwards, becoming a blur, scaling the top of the overpass ahead. You hear her feet tapping, pattering on the concrete for a few seconds before she disappears into the darkness, leaving you alone.
Any excuse she gets, she does that.
This was A Little Hope, Episode 5 of Vampire War for the Second City, a Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition actual play podcast presented by DM Fiat. With me, Dale, as storyteller, Lost Demiurge as Hope, H-Quen as Sylvia, Enigma as the Clear Dusty, Paradox Mimic as Derek, Mr. Dadlin as Desmond, and Shay Luck as Dahlia. Music was created by Kevin MacLeod and is used with permission. Vampire the Masquerade and the World of Darkness are the registered trademarks and property of White Wolf Entertainment and Paradox Game Studios.